I think if you design your business to sell, you will last. So the same practice, the same foundation that you're going to build to sell that business is going to make that business sustainable, and it's going to make that business, a growing, healthy business.
So the question is this: how do most agents find the secrets to succeed in today's competitive real estate market, especially when the top agents are keeping those secrets to themselves? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. Hi, I'm Aaron Amuchastegui, and welcome to Real Estate Rockstars. Real Estate Rockstars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui. Today I get to interview Jay Bourgana. I think you guys are going to really like hearing about this. One of our questions we say, if you were on stage, what would you talk about? And his big thing would be how to build a profitable real estate business and sell it in 5 years or less. We're going to talk about how Jay did that, bought and sold a business, and some of the things he's working on now, and maybe how he can help you if you guys are interested in that. Jay was born and raised in Morocco, lives in Orange County, California with his wife and his 2 children, and he is a recovering management consultant turned business owner. I can't wait to talk about that and how he got there and how he grew his real estate brand. So Jay, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. By the way, before we get started, I want to give you a shout out on a great book. I'm halfway through it. Thank you for writing it. And I'm enjoying it. Maybe we can, get together and maybe have a tribe around buying foreclosures when they become available.
Yes, I'd love to be able to talk about it. Jay was holding up our book, Bidding to Buy. So it was a new one released by Bigger Pockets just a month ago. And yeah, right now foreclosures are on such a crazy moratorium that they've been almost totally on hold. But come January, we think it's going to be turned back on. But there's also talk in the stimulus they're going to postpone foreclosures a whole additional year. So we'll see what happens with that. But thanks for the shout out on the book. I love seeing that you've got so many books behind you. So if our book made it on that list with me and David Osborne wrote that book, I'm happy to see it. So
I'm enjoying it. I have a lot of notes, so I'm looking forward to putting it in practice for sure.
That's awesome. So one of the things you talked about is you were in a recovery management consultant business.
Yeah.
What is recovery management? So what were you doing before you were in real estate?
So like I said, I'm originally from Morocco. I started my career in banking early age. I enjoyed working with consumer, but I also enjoyed more working with entrepreneurs and helping entrepreneurs get loans and get facilities and doing stuff. I worked in Morocco. I worked in Europe. And I get to see kind of like, early 90s, there are not a ton of opportunities. There's the world economy was in a recession and high unemployment rate. So I kind of saw like the impact of the economic environment on small businesses. So when I came to the US, I wanted to, get away from banking, and I went into manufacturing. I spent about 5 years with a company, 3 years of those 5 in China, where essentially reorganized a 1 million square foot facility that produced home decor products, food products, health and beauty products. 3,000 employees, 24/7 operation. And then we kind of like got hit by 2007, and that business kind of like got shut down. And I went into essentially helping businesses in a consultant way into reorganizing their operation to become more profitable. So I was, traveling across the country and across the world into different industries, whether it is manufacturing or distribution or service industries, and turning their operation from losing money operation to making money operation, from a bad culture to a good culture. And I enjoyed that part, until I got kind of like tired of traveling and spending a year at a hotel, next to a warehouse. And so I went into, essentially, I took a year off and started buying some properties around 2012. And I enjoyed that process of, creating value in real estate and seeing home property values go up. I was intrigued by the real estate process. And I said, okay, I'm going to get into sales to kind of learn a little bit more. And during that time, I met my wife, and we got married and had my first child on the way. And real estate became serious for me. And all of a sudden, it turns from something that I was interested in into, a career. And so that's the kind of like the recovery from being a consultant, a business management consultant, to become an entrepreneur. And we started in sales like any other, a new agent, hit the phone, cold call around the neighborhoods and setting appointments to take listings. But I was thinking about it from a different perspective, a different angle, where I didn't want to just create a job for myself. I wanted to build a business. So as I was looking around in a real estate space, I figured that more real estate companies were more like a multi-level marketing operations, where they will just recruit as many bodies as they can, and whoever succeeds, and whoever fails. And I wanted to change that, as I'm seeing the demographics of the consumer, of the home buyer and the seller, is changing, and the demographics of the population of agents still averaging about 55 years old. There's a big gap between what's going on, from the consumer standpoint, and what the industry, is delivering as agents. And so I kind of like I rode the whole internet lead generation wave, and kind of the millennial buyer wave. And essentially, we built a brand, we built a company that is systemized and standardized to deliver a certain experience to that niche, essentially. Like they say, riches are in niches.
Yeah. So let's dig into that first year. So you said, you did all the stuff as an agent. You started what and how long ago was that?
So around 2013.
All right, so 2013, you decided, I'm going to become an agent.
Yeah.
And where did you go to work first?
Century 21 office.
All right, Century 21. And where was that?
That was in Irvine, actually.
All right, so California. In Irvine, you went and joined a Century 21 office. You said, I want to get into real estate. I've been traveling and I'm ready to not. How do I get started? And so you said you went in and you started doing the normal sales stuff, but you had a long-term plan and vision. But what was that normal sales stuff? How did you get your first listing or your first buyer agent? Did you do more listings or more buyer agent stuff?
That's a great question. So I joined what we call a Mike Ferry office. Essentially, they had literally a list, a stack of phone numbers that were sitting on the side. They had a stack of scripts on the other side, and they showed me where the phone was. And essentially, I was literally, dialing with the phone. And I had the script in front of me, and I had the Mike Ferry script in front of me, and I had the list of home phone numbers in front of me. And I just did it for, probably 12, 18 months, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
So they said, here's the numbers you're going to call, and here's what you're going to say. And and so then it was just up to you. And so you said like 10 hours a day, you were making those calls and just going for it. So which is a pretty incredible way to start. What did they tell you where they got those leads or where those phone numbers came from?
Oh, they're essentially just a list, just the home phone numbers. They're all home phone numbers. Most of the people picked up were old people that still had home phone numbers. And that's all I did for about 18 months. So
they didn't even know who the people were. It was just it was just totally cold. This person has a phone in their house.
Yes.
And so what was the call? What if they said hello? What was your call?
Just hi, this is Jay with Century 21. We just listed a home down the street on 123 Main Street. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's $700,000. And I was calling to see if you knew anyone who was thinking about buying. No, fantastic. And this the Mike Ferry script. I'm glad. Thank you for thinking about it. How about yourself? When you plan on moving? And you go through the whole script.
And so, how long before you got a deal? So you were calling like crazy.
Yeah.
And so you jumped right in. They said, "Here's your script. Here's your numbers." How long before you actually started getting deals?
It took me about 6 months to close my first deal.
That's a very common story. I just finished interviewing somebody that had like 30 deals their first year, which that's fantastic. And some of you guys out there listening, you are going to have that year, and there's so much possible. It's also very important for people to realize. And now remember, Jay sold his company for a ton of money too. So when we think about if you're in this business and you're working 10, 12 hours a day calling, it might take 6 months to get that first deal. So what was that first deal? Do you remember it?
Yeah, it was actually a short sale. It was a family. Yeah, I called this family on a Friday night. I remember the lady was super sweet, and I told her if she was thinking about selling. She says, "I don't even know if we can sell. We really want to sell, but I don't think our value's there." and I asked her more questions, and I I asked her to set an appointment with her and her husband. I called her 3 or 4 times the next day on the Saturday morning. She set the appointment on I think we set it on the next day on a Sunday morning. I went to their house and I explained what the short sale process was. They didn't understand. It was funny. They felt so bad that they were not making their payments on their mortgage. And they really took that as like a personal thing in terms of like not being able to make their payments on their debt. And it was stressing them out so much that they felt so much relief after I left their house. And I gave them what the process was to relieve them from that burden of that stress and show them a path to kind of like getting from under that house and moving on with their life.
Real estate rock stars, this is Aaron Amuchastegui with a quick commercial break from our sponsor, Rent Ready. Why do you invest in real estate? To retire early? To build your dream home? Start your own business? Whatever the reason, whatever the dream, Rent Ready can help you reach it. With Rent Ready's unlimited property management features, your real estate dreams are also unlimited. Rent Ready is landlord-tenant software that covers all of your real estate investing needs, including unlimited properties, tenants, and live customer support so you can start small and grow your business without increasing costs. You know, I've had plenty of subscriptions before where you get charged like per house that you own or per deal you've done. And what they're saying is, hey, it's going to cost the same thing no matter what. Whether you have 1 house, 10 houses, or 100 houses, they're not going to penalize you when you grow, and they're going to help you grow. Rent Ready is a flat price and scalable for your needs. No need to shell out big bucks for multiple management softwares. With Rent Ready, they have everything you need all in one platform so you manage your rentals and grow your portfolio. As a special offer, you've heard it on here before, you can try Rent Ready for 1 year for only $1, but you have to use our code. Here is the code ROCKSTAR, ROCKSTAR, and sign up for Rent Ready's annual plan at rentready.com. That's RENTREDI.com with code ROCKSTAR to get Rent Ready for a year for just $1. And if you want to learn more about Rent Ready, or you want to learn more about Ryan, the CEO and founder of Rent Ready, go check out episode 939, where I interviewed him about why he created this platform and what they're doing next. And Jay, this is super inspirational to tell people like how to work hard and keep going no matter what, and not to get discouraged. Because your first deal that you got, it was also a hard deal. Right. Your first deal that you came was like doing a short sale, and you obviously hadn't done a short sale before. Like you hadn't done any deals. So that was a very specialized, like crazy niche. So to be able to not give up, they said, hey, I would like to sell, but I don't know if I have the value. I could see a bunch of agents moving on to the next one and going, okay, you're right. You don't have the value. I don't know what I'm doing. And instead you're like, I'm going to give it a try. So it took you 6 months for the first deal. How many other deals did you do that first year?
About 10 transactions that first year.
Okay. So then it started to roll. You started to get more of those people calling back and saying, okay, Jay, I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to sell. Most of the people that first year, were they selling their houses or were they buying houses? Selling.
Actually, my first year, all were transactions were listings. I didn't even know how to work with buyers.
That's incredible. And there are a lot of buyers. There are a lot of new agents that are kind of, whether they like it or not, they become buyers agents because that seems to be the lead for new agents. But you've actually said, no, by just taking a list of home phone numbers, you were able to become a listing agent your first year just from cold calling. Really cool. Listeners, if there's any of you guys out there that really want to be a listing agent, like you should listen to some of the stuff that Jay is talking about here, and also not to get discouraged. It is hard to work hard doing the same thing for 6 months before you see any payoff for it. It is hard to see what might be there. If you were going to give yourself any advice for that first year, if you could go back and talk to yourself 5 or 6 months in, what advice would you tell yourself about your business?
I'm sorry. What was that question again?
So if you could go back and tell yourself, from when you just started, what advice would you give yourself when you just got into real estate?
It's a good question. I would probably just be more patient. Seek out more mentors. And but I wouldn't change anything from my experience because just going back to what you said, just being doing all listings my first year. The reason why I was doing all listings my first year is because my brokers wouldn't allow me to work buyers. And I just took him for his word. He says, like, you are not allowed to work with buyers in that office. and all you were allowed to work was listings. I didn't even know how to use the MLS to create a safe search. Like I didn't have an IDX website. I had no idea what all I did was follow what they told me to do, and I just went full force, maximum focus, and I just did not question anything. So it's a fascinating start for me for sure.
Yeah. So now let's dig into, so you said when you started, a lot of the real estate companies out there are like MLM schemes where you feel like they just try to hire a bunch of agents without caring. You were going to do it different. So did you stay with Century 21 so then when did you make a transition to go start to build your own team that then you went off and sold?
Probably about 18 months into my first year. So what happened was that essentially that first 18 months, I was grinding through it. Again, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was grinding through the whole thing. And, my wife was, we had our first child, and probably about 18 months into I burned out. And I changed offices, but during that time, I needed to get away. I needed to kind of like go travel, do something. And I found a local independent, and I found an assistant manager within the office that was knowledgeable, nice, and I could trust with my transactions. And I literally hand them about 6-7 transactions, and I told them, please take these, help me with these. I'll split with you 50-50. I'm going to go I went to Paris for a month, and I just gave him my phone, and I gave him my transaction. I left. And I figured, okay, half of the transactions are going to close, the other half are not going to close. I'll deal with it when I come back. And I just knew that the guy was going to do right by my clients. He's a good guy, and he's going to take care of my clients. When I came back, he did such an amazing job that, my clients were happy. All the transactions closed, even the ones that I didn't think will close. And I thought to myself, maybe I'm ready to go to the next stage where I can leverage some of that activity and volume that I did, and I can start hiring, buyers agents.
All right. So then you started to grow, and so tell us, but the story is pretty incredible. So you started that within 4 years. Was it within 4 years of starting the new thing that then you got it and sold it? And what was that process like? And how much did you sell? Just tell us, take us through that process.
So we went, so once we decided to start growing, so I went from 10 transactions my first year to 30 my second year to about 90 the third year to about 120 the following year.
And you were doing that with a team. When you were doing 120, you had assistants.
I'm sorry, 180 that fourth year. Yeah. So I had a team. So I had buyer's agents, and I started, turning some of the buyer's agents into listing agents. And I had a marketing manager. I had an operations manager. So we were systemized. We had our own office. We had our own brand. We like everybody had the same email address. Everybody had the same email signature. Everybody had, our t-shirts, our logo. Everything was like, branded, standardized. We had the way if we did the first conversation with the client. We had the way if you did the first presentation to the client. We had our booklets that we give a buyer or a seller. We had our own PowerPoint presentation. Everything was systemized, and it was consistent. It was like the Starbucks experience. You would have the same drink in any store, anywhere you go. And so that last year, that fourth year, we moved to Keller Williams because we were in a transaction fee model, and the transaction fee with the number of transactions became too high. So Keller Williams became attractive because of the cap. So we moved to Keller Williams, but we had our own office. So we were kind of like a mega agent office within Keller Williams that year. And I started thinking about like around the end of the year, we were growing fast. And when you're in a growing business, there's a lot of capital that is needed to keep up with that growth. You're doing more marketing, your office space is bigger, you have more people, you got to hire assistants, you have bigger systems. So we're still growing 40-50% year over year. But our, capital needs are growing. So I started thinking about finding investors, maybe raising money. And I started just literally just talking to people, and nothing came out of that really, but it essentially just put the energy out in the universe that, I was kind of ready for that next step. And it's just so it happened that I randomly got a cold email from a big independent, a $6 billion, independent that's local in Orange County. It was a cold email that they were trying to grow through acquisition. And they thought we were essentially an independent brokerage because we were kind of branded separate. So they thought we were independent. They saw our volume, they saw our branch volume, and they reached out to us. And I literally spammed. I sent the email to spam because I didn't think of it. And then I got curious. About 15 minutes later, I went back to the spam inbox and I brought it back. And I clicked on it and I sent an email. Tell me more. And I got a call the next day and I spoke to the guy. The guy came to our office. We talked for 2 hours. We just liked each other. We really enjoyed our conversation about the industry and the business. And then he figured that we were not a brokerage, we were a team, but he were interested in the model because the way we were structured better than independent brokers. Most of the production, was not coming from me. 10% of the production was coming from me. 90% of the production coming from the team. So it was a very attractive, kind of model for them. And we started the conversation from there. It was like around March, and then literally we closed in July.
So he said, "Hey, we want to buy into your company."
Yeah.
And then, but it was like actually buying into ownership in the team. And then you sold a major stake in your team.
Yes.
So how did you value that? So when it comes up with valuations and they go, you come up with a dollar volume, what is a team worth? How does someone decide what a team is worth?
That's a great question. So that was also something unique for us. But in general, teams are valued at between 2.5 and 3 times EBITDA, earnings before taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And essentially, so whatever that net profit at the end, remove all your expenses, your personal expenses are you're shoving into that, those filings, that times 2.5, between 2.5 and 3. And that the difference between 2.5 and 3 is based on the risk in the business. If the team has, 50% of the business coming from the team leader, then it's a little bit more risk because if you buy into business and the team leader leaves, you lose half the business. If the team is structured in a way that is sticky, where the agents have to stay with the team or have a stickiness to the team or to the business, there's less risk than if they're essentially just hanging their license with an office. So there are a lot of different variations to what that multiple ends up being, but that's usually the formula.
All right. So the risk is based on, So no one wants to buy a company and then Jay retires and they find out that Jay was half the value, right?
Exactly.
And you go, no, you just paid me. I don't have to do any, I can quit now if I want to. And so I'm sure there's some agreements and stuff in there. So 2.5 times 3. And when you're talking about, EBITDA, right? So if you have, 5 million in gross commissions that comes in, and then you have 3 million that goes out to, your agents, and then 1 million into your lease, right?
Yeah.
That's your $1 million. Those are the expenses, right? The expenses are what are you paying the agents for doing the volume and any costs they have, office costs. If it ends up that you're $1 million left after everything, then you could potentially sell your team for 2.5 to 3 million bucks.
3 million, correct.
Right. So then they're going to make that $1 million a year instead of you making it, but you get to sell for that. Very cool. And it makes sense. You talk about a bunch of different valuations for businesses that are out there. Like software companies are like 6 to 10 and things like that, which is kind of crazy. I've heard of real estate books only being worth like 1 times revenue, right? Because if somebody's like getting ready to retire and they're not a good, and it's just them, right? Yes. So if it's just a person with a brand says, hey, I want to retire, I'll pass off all my clients to you. People essentially say, well, we'll buy it for 1 times gross commissions because we don't really know if people are going to keep, especially when it's so much about a person. When it's about a team and a system and the way that you guys are generating new leads, that's how it gets to be there. So you talked to Curtis before when you did your pre-interview, and you had like a kind of steps on how to build a business to sell. Talk about some of those. So if somebody's listening right now and they're getting ready to start their team, or they have their team, but now they're thinking about, whoa, I never thought I could sell off my team or a portion of my team, right? Like you didn't sell 100% of your team, did you?
Yeah, I sold 70%.
Right. So you sold 70%. Like talk about getting risk off the table. You took a big paycheck. You still get 30% of that, EBITDA, but now 70% is going to somebody else. And that probably helps you grow or do whatever else you want to do. So what are the steps of how to build a business to sell?
Yeah. So whether you want to, let me take a step back. So whether you want to sell or not, I think it's a good process to go through because, there are books that have been written, built to sell, built to last. I think if you design your business to sell, you will last. So the same practice, the same foundation that you're going to build to sell that business is going to make that business sustainable, and it's going to make that business, a growing, healthy business. So it has to start with essentially the intention. You have to be intentional about, essentially building a business to sell or to last. So, the way you want to think about it is, how do you build essentially a business in the box that you can hand someone, whether you're there or not? If you get hit by a bus, that business is still growing and is still, thriving. And not only you're building that business for someone else, but you can build it for your, family. You build it for your team, build it for the people that trusted, to join you. So essentially the intention is essentially how to design that business from the beginning that way. So it starts with, systems. It starts with, having a vision of what you want your consumer or your buyers and sellers to experience, and then mapping that experience based on your style, based on your brand, and then mapping that experience for your agents or your employees, and then having a process for that, having a process for client acquisition, having a process for client retention, and having a process for agent acquisition and agent retention. And, Peter Drucker says that the only reason for a business to exist is to acquire customers and to keep them. And I would say yes, but also to acquire talent and to keep it. Because one of the ways to keep the customers is to have great people, amazing people, well-trained people, motivated people. So, and then essentially, once you have those systems and processes for your acquisition, retention of clients, acquisition and retention of agents, now you have to build a culture within your organization that's going to seal those processes, and then safeguard that tribal wisdom and keep it within the organization, so you're not leaking. You see these teams that are just like, a turnover machines, people coming in, people leaving, people coming in. So you're trying to create, essentially a culture that's going to be sticky for agents. And essentially you align your culture, your team culture with your brand. Now, when the consumer is seeing your brand and they meet your agent, the agent represents that brand. The agent speaks the brand, breathes the brand. And I think that's when you have that magic, where you have something that's in the box that can not only can be sold, but also can last, for a long time.
That's awesome. So you start with, that's kind of like that, the mindset of the brand. Who are we and how are we doing that? Then you really dive that into building the processes and the standardization. So going, well, you learned that at your very first job. They said, here's a phone number and here's what you're going to say, right?
Yes.
And so that was the process. That was the standardization process. Like, Jace, you're going to sit down, you're going to call these numbers every day, and here's your script. So you took what you did your first day and you kind of said, well, maybe, but now you've learned stuff, right? You've been doing it. So you started to add extra things to your standardization. So now you've got that structure to build to keep that thing. Now, Curtis said that when you talked to him earlier, you said that hiring is so important in what you do. And there's a certain type of agent that you like to hire and that you were focusing on hiring. Talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
So there are three criteria that we look for. We look for intelligence, we look for high ethics, and we look for work habits. So we want people that are smart, people that are gonna grind, and they're gonna take care of the clients. They're not gonna screw our clients. So essentially, those are three elements that we recruit for. Obviously, you can interview a person, you could tell their intelligence from the conversations you're having with them. You could tell a little bit about their work ethic, a little bit, from their history. But you really can't tell if they're ethical people and they're going to make the right decision, the right thing by the client, right there and then, unless you experience them. But that's, essentially another stage that we see when they come into our environment. So essentially, whenever we are interviewing, we're essentially screening for that first half. And then that first month or so, we're seeing the work ethic in front of us. And then maybe that first, the second 2 months, we're seeing their, behavior, if they're doing the right things with our team members, they're doing the right thing with our, and those are essentially kind of like checkpoints for us when people come into our world, is that we interview a couple times up front, then we observe that first 30 days, and then we lose probably some people in that first 30 days, and then that 90-day, and then if they pass the 90-day, they usually stay with us for 3, 4, 5 years.
Wow. So do you prefer new agents or seasoned agents when you're doing that?
We prefer new agents, agents that have been in the business maybe like less than 2 years, a year and a half. That's usually, they tend to not have bad habits. They haven't established the bad work routines, because that's one of the things that, when people come to our world, they bring everything with them. So they don't just, come as a body from 8 to 5. They actually bring their work, their sleeping habit, their diet habits, their relationship habits, their financial, habits, and essentially they bring all that stuff with them. And we essentially have to help them and guide them in that transformation when they come into our world, to start with their work habit first, and then kind of make them understand that, hey, in order for you to sustain this high level of activity, you got to take care of your health. You got to take care of your, sleep, your, water, your relationships. You got to take care of your financials. You can't be, always, in debt and stressed out about it. And so all these things kind of like we start building in. It's almost like we're in a kind of like a human transformation business. We're not just. You know what I mean?
It's like that whole life millionaire talk, right? You're like, we're not just going to help you succeed at this, but you got to succeed at life, and help giving the tools to succeed at life. There's got to be some advantage too to agents. When you first say new agents, but that's agents within their first year or two, they also know by then that it's not necessarily easy money, right? That they're not going to get, like you said, you didn't get your first deal for 6 months. I've met a lot of people a few months into real estate that haven't gotten a deal yet, and they go, "This sucks, I quit." Right? Like, I'm just not going to do it anymore. But if you got somebody that's been around for a year or two, they've at least experienced a little bit of expectation, right? The expectation that says, hey, they're coming to you because they haven't quite performed at their level yet, but they also know that it's not going to be easy, and they're ready to grow. So, all right. So you get this, you come up with your brand and your culture, you come up with your systems, your how-to, you make it really, really specific. This is how we do it. You start hiring new talent. You teach them your system, you help grow them as people, and now your business starts to grow, and your team starts to grow, and you're helping them, get deals through the systems. How do you know when you're ready to sell? Like, how did you started saying, hey, I think we can sell. If somebody else has grown a team and they're thinking about selling, or they're listening right now and they're like, hey, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do that right now. At what moment is a good time for somebody to sell? Because part of me would say, well, if it's going to keep growing, just keep getting your team revenue. Why? Correct. So I guess why sell? Why would someone sell, and how do they know if it's a good time to sell?
That's such a great question. For me, selling was not to exit. For me, selling was to find essentially a partner to grow it. It's almost like you've been growing, and you want to get to a point where you just take a break, just take a breather, because you're in this roller coaster. And you're managing, all this growth, and you're managing the challenges of cash flow, that you just sometimes just want to break, and you want to find, a partner that's going to help you get to the next level. And for me, like I was telling you, the question at first was like, how can we help, finance the growth? How can we get some level of partnership to find? So my goal is not to exit, but there are people that that may need to exit because of health, or because of family situation, or because of financial situation. But in general, most of the teams are like fast growing teams. What they need that partner that's going to get them to the next level. They get to the maybe they hit $1 million, or they hit $2 million in GCI, and now they want to hit that 5 million, and that's a big leap. To be able, you probably don't have the systems, you don't have the processes. A lot of teams that I see, they've grown maybe to 3 million GCI, but 50% or 60% of the production is coming from them. and they've never been able to transition to a place where 90% of the production is coming from their team. And that comes from, like the structure of the team, the training, the coaching, the way they positioned, their team structure. So having a partner to come in and help them reset essentially, and essentially it's almost like a consultant to come and look at their business and restructure it in a way that's going to allow it to grow from that 2 million, 1 million GCI, 2 million, 3 million GCI to that 5, 10 million GCI.
So and that's probably part of why you sell part of it, right? So you're actually saying like, hey, it's not just like you grew it, you sell it and you're done. You're going to sell it based on, you're going to get some money for what you've done so far.
Correct.
But now you're going to get a partner that says, so let's say you sell for, 70% for $1 million today.
Yeah.
The hope is that within a year or two, and now you still own 20 or 30% of your business, that they're going to help you grow it so big that in another couple of years, you could sell it for another couple $1 million.
Exactly.
So you're not just selling it to people, you're selling it to people that are going to help you grow your business. I hadn't thought about it like that. It's like selling in to a partnership. Well, that is any other like big advice you would give somebody when they're talking about, real estate in 2020 or things to focus on, or just how to succeed as an agent?
Well, I think there's a big shift right now in the demographics of the clients that we work with, and there's definitely a multiple shifts in terms of like the systems, the technologies, and the way we do our business. So you definitely want to pay attention to those elements. You definitely want to position your offering, your service offering, however it is, whether you're a single agent or a small team or a big team. You want to frame your offering to that target consumer, and communicate with them in the way they want to be communicated to, and service them in the way they want to be serviced. And COVID has exposed all that. In real estate right now, 50% of the agents are doing really well. 50%, are just, struggling. And that gap is essentially between old world and new world. And it's just like the retailer, the brick and mortar retailer is struggling right now. The online retailers are doing really well. The agents who have taken technology as a base for them to do business and dug deep into understanding how the new clients or the consumers behave, the new consumer behavior has changed, have been successful, and we're able to take advantage of this, situation. We grew this year. This last 12 months, we actually grew about 40%. Our business has grown, even though our market has shrunk about 10%. The number of transactions closed has been down 10% in our market, but our business and our team has grown about 40%. And just because we're positioned more like, an Amazon and less like, a Bed Bath & Beyond or a Big Lots.
Yeah. Jay, this was a really inspirational interview out there for people to show them how to work hard to grow something. And then also some really actionable tips for what to think about when they're growing, if that's what they want to do. If someone wants to reach out to you, as we close out the show, there's always messages and people saying, hey, how do I get a hold of that guy? So if somebody wants advice on how to sell their business, or they want advice on how to buy a business, or what they should do on their team, or they want your help, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? And do you want them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. If they're thinking about growing their business or selling, or maybe, just restructuring, happy to help. My phone number is 562-338-4894. I think it's showing on the screen maybe. And my email is j@homeearly.com. Home early with one E. So j@homeearly.com.
j@homeearly.com. HOMEARLY. We will have that in the show notes as well. And he just gave you his phone number. Jay, thanks for coming on. And all you listeners out there, I hope that you really took what Jay said and you listened and you took some notes. Hopefully you get excited about making some of those phone calls if you need to, or growing that team, or hiring or creating that culture. So much important stuff in there. And he means it when he says, reach out and he will help you with that. So Real Estate Rockstars, thank you for listening. Jay Bourgana, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
All right, real estate rock stars. This is Aaron Muchastegui jumping in again to thank you for listening to the show. Hopefully you guys loved listening to that one. And I want to make sure that you know about all of the extra resources that we have. And also, we need your help. They say podcasts are free. You get to listen to podcasts for free. But what is the cost of that podcast? I would say if I could beg you to pay anything for that podcast, I would say the cost of the podcast is going and giving a review. So whether you download it on Google or Apple or YouTube or anywhere else, please go give us a review. Say what you liked, what you didn't like. It helps us get better guests. The more reviews, the higher we get in the rankings. Right now, we are the biggest podcast out there for real estate agents, and we want to keep that spot because we know there's lots of podcasts out there. So go give us a review. Also, be sure to go to hibandigital.com. If you liked any of the resources that those real estate agents talked about, we've got a huge video vault of those resources for free. Every penny that comes on the podcast that we interview, they give us something that helps them get their deals or helps them work with their clients. And we put that in the toolbox in our vault for you. So go to hibandigital.com and you can get it. If you're looking for real estate education, go to rebusuniversity.com. We have all sorts of courses in there to help agents succeed in real estate, how to get the listing, how to negotiate deals, how to become an investor, all sorts of different stuff, rebusuniversity.com. And if you want to chat with me, go find me on Instagram. And if you come find me on Instagram, you can send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. We try to put a bunch of content out there too. You can find me in two different places. It's at rerockstars.com for our Real Estate Rockstars page, or at aaronandmuchastegui.com for my personal Instagram page, where I can chat with you about all sorts of different things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.